Welcome to the second episode of Diablo Insights. I am Ava, or Avarlin. I am a writer for Maxroll, and I write technical articles that you might have read before, such as how attack speed functions, how lucky hit functions, etc. Today I'm joined with a couple of, well, heroes in the community, if you like guides, or just general strong personalities that you might have seen in chat. We can start with Slot. Welcome. Tell me who
Hello.
you
Hello.
are. Well, tell everyone who you are, I suppose.
I am Slot. I play Rogue and only Rogue. I like to make my class do things that it shouldn't be able to do. Examples are face tanking Nightmare 100 in Season 0 and Lilith to death, which people thought was not possible, let alone doable several times. I also kind of like to take a strange view on the class. I will play off meta builds such as Barrage and other things that people just say won't work and make it work. Most recently was Heartseeker, which after Barrage didn't make it through season 4, I kind of took that and put my own little spin on it, put Bow on and some other things with the help of Sanctum and others, and yeah, that's kind of what I like to do.
All right, welcome.
Hey guys. I'm
So,
C-Todd. I'm a GMS for Necros. I do a lot of interaction testing, but I'm probably more known for conducting tests and making builds for minions. And yeah, I guess that's it.
welcome
Hey
aboard.
guys, I'm all. Huh?
I was just
What?
going to say
Sorry.
welcome.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, I'm Aloy or Miko, whatever you prefer. Just don't say Aoi, because I'm gonna be mad. I love to play Whirlwind and love to maximize it. That's mostly what I do on the Barb. I play other stuff, but Whirlwind is my love. And I make builds for it, some build guides and stuff like that, and try to help out around the community. I also mod on the Discord and try to help out the community as best as I can.
And our final guy that is not wearing a robe, even
Uh,
though he's a sorcerer.
nah, we wear jerseys here. Hi, I'm Nate. Go by Lurkin. I make all the build guides for Sorcerer for Mobalytics. I just every season I take every single skill and I make like a feasible, usable build with it. Sometimes I don't get to actually play some of them, but I usually keep track of. Like I'll keep forum posts up. Like this season for Meteor, I was like following the people that were pushing Meteor and stuff like that. So I just try and take trash and make it treasure.
All right. Well, these people and myself, we are going to be talking a little bit about the state of the game in the PvE environment today. That means we're going to talk a little bit about the pit, how the classes feel in the pit, how we deal with, gauntlet stuff, wishes for the future, a little bit about what we sort of want in terms of PvE for our classes and how we feel our classes are doing right now in those environments. So how do we feel if we're gonna go class by class? We can start with Slot. How do we feel about rogues right now? Like a brief overview. Are we struggling? Are we eating good?
You want the 2-minute answer or the long answer?
Give me a answer and we'll see how it goes, I guess.
Okay, I would say that rogues are a great class if you play within the confines of what Blizzard lets you do and not within the class fantasy of what Blizzard wanted you to do. And what I kind of mean by that is you are very pigeonholed into what you can play because everything is so core centric. Um, they don't give you options to scale all the new toys that we got, such as grenades, arrow storms. Poison kind of does fit in there, but it feels like you have one real skill and 5 different things to play around with it. Um, I don't think there's any set of nerfs that would make Rogue unplayable. We will always find a way. People said we would be bottom tier in season 4. People said we would be bottom tier in season 3, etc., etc. You can't tank. We've proven them wrong every single time. I think it is a great class that is missing its actual identity.
Yeah, I would probably be inclined to agree. Uh, the issue I feel with Rogue as well is that we are essentially as good as the bugs allows us to be, and when they aren't bugs, we are afraid, I suppose. But yeah,
Yeah, it's like the ultimates do nothing. Dash and Shadow Step compared to what we saw from Spiritborn yesterday do nothing. They're strictly movement. Caltrops is one of the worst abilities in the game, but one of the most necessary abilities in the game. You get into things like, I can give a few examples here. Deadly Ambush, which is supposed to be a a legendary node on our tree that only works for crits, works for all damage. And there just isn't enough support. We have some of the worst specializations in the game. It's like combo points, which works for core, inner sight, which does nothing, and preparation, which was kind of off a bit, but um, also kind of worked. It just is missing a push to get all of the other toys and tools that they gave us to work, and Blizzard seems very hesitant to do so. Another example could be for Inner Sight. They actually took the legendary node, which is Leyrana's Witness, and took out the skill that buffs it in the game, which is core damage. There's no sources for it anymore that you can get on gear. And again, all Leyrana's would do is buff core. Uh, I think ultimately what Blizzard has to do is be willing to break this mold of everything buffs core. So you can see it again with the new crown in season 5. You could see it. I think also that new necklace. And give us some toys that just buff arrow storms, buff poison, buff shadow damage. Otherwise, it's always going to be core, core, core for this build.
makes sense. Cetod, what do you think about current state of the poor little necromancers? You guys okay over there?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding necro builds because of various bugs and nerfs. The bugs I'm mostly thinking about is apparent depth decrepify. For some reason, it minions can proc lucky hit
Mm.
with apparent decrepify, which I don't think is intended, and it's really hard to sometimes make builds because we've been relying on this bug since the start of the game, and a lot of our key passives are just not very functional in practice. For example, Shadow Blight, it wants you to scale shadow damage over time, and it's based on it scales with critical strike damage, which is kind of weird because we're never at the same time. And the only reason why we ever used Shadow Blight key passive was just to enable the blighted aspect, and that just got nerfed really hard to the ground.
Yeah, that's true. Like the necro nerfs has been kind of weird in that regard because we spoke a little bit about it in a previous episode that it basically made the up and
I'm
coming
done
builds
talking.
worse, I guess. Um, what about Sorcerer then?
Hello,
Hello?
hello,
Sorks.
Can you hear us? See that? I don't think Seated can hear us anymore.
hello.
Oh, jeez. I see that,
Hello.
brother.
Can
Oh,
can
okay.
you hear me?
The audio issues continue. But what about Sorcerer then? I suppose that you have your fair share of passives and stuff that doesn't work like as intended.
Actually, no. Everything works on Sorcerer, for the most part. We don't have the same bugs that the other classes have. There's usually never some like I mean like this season, yeah, Verse Mastery was working with all skills, but like it was like 20% damage. Who cares? Um, but Sorcerer is the master of all elements and the caster of one. So basically, yeah, you just run a single skill and you put all your eggs in, you have to put all your eggs into one basket, and then you run defensives and, ice blades or lightning spear to apply vulnerable, ice blades for your cooldown. And yeah, so every Sorc build looks the same with one caster, maybe an ult. Um, the issue comes down to like what I saw with Spiritborn was all the different elements like working together. Is that our elements don't work together? There's no way to scale all of them. Every single key passive is like tied to an element. Burning damage, direct damage, fire, shock cooldowns, shattering things, and then frost skills. And then most of them, all of the legendary nodes in the Paragon are all element specific. So like you're really just tied into one, and it feels like there should be synergy between the skills, or like an opportunity to even run something like a hybrid, such as Firewall Meteor. When like Starfall Coronet came out, I was like, oh, this is gonna be so sick. Like I'm gonna burn enemies and I'll immobilize them, and then like all this stuff. And it's like I can't scale both. You can only cast one skill at a time, so it's like you can't run Frozen Orb Meteor, or you can't do these things because they don't buff each other. And then through the Paragon and the key passives, you can only do it one way. And like Sork's Head, as everyone knows, Sork's Head's really bad damage in the past, so it makes build crafting really linear and really static. Like I'll make a build and it'll look exactly like Northwar's off max roll. Like the boards, besides a few creative liberties or preferences like max life, mana, stuff like that, it's rushing 7, 8 glyphs. And we've been doing this since preseason, season 1. Like we've always had 7 glyphs, and then season 3, the 8 glyph boards came out, and now that's just like all it's been is 8 glyph boards. Because all of our additive nodes are bad, but it's just very formulaic to make the class, and it gets a little boring when there's really no way to scale or like make it fun or stuff like that. But I'm really stoked about the buffs that we just got, because it essentially gave like at base basically 2 to 2.5x damage on like a lot of our skills just at base. So I don't think it's going to change the metric too much on pits,
Hmm.
because like what are you going to get, another 5, 10 tiers and you're still going to be hardwalled 140. But I think it'll make the barrier to entry for Sorks, like getting into the end game, the bosses, the pit 101s, like, because that's really where you want to farm. I think it's going to be a lot more. There's going to be a lot less friction getting there. The journey is going to be more fun.
That's kind of interesting because we were talking about this a little bit yesterday as well, right? With the buffs that Sorcerer are about to receive and stuff. What would you say that you guys need fundamentally to get to a place where the class itself would feel a little bit better? I know this is like a little bit of a tangent, but like since you're saying
Uh,
that these buffs are just essentially buffing what you already have, just increasing the cap, what do you
yeah,
like to
just
see?
the biggest thing are the enchantment system is not that good. Besides the fact that half the enchantments suck, like other classes, I don't know how to explain it. Some other classes, like we have to dig into our design space. Say we want to run Firebolt enchant, we have to dig into the design space to get value out of the burning that we apply. Like I need a passive on my amulet, I need a glyph, and then just the fact that I even need skill points to use the enchantments. So I think just the enchantment of the enchantment system as a whole needs to just get torn down and then rebuilt up. And then also too, I'd love if like the key passives were just like not element specific.
Mm,
Like if like Ver's Mastery, it needs a shock skill to proc it. But that's what's cool about Ver's now, is it needs a shock skill to proc it, but then every skill can benefit from it once you are charged from the proc. So that's like a good step forward in the right direction.
mm.
But I don't know. I want there to be synergies between the skills. Like I want there to be value in like casting a frost skill, that it enhances my fire skills or something like that. Besides just like make enemy burn, tank points in devouring blaze, get 60% damage because it's lackluster.
That makes a lot of sense, to be
Um,
honest.
just want to have fun, man.
So one final class just to have like, oh, well, I suppose two because I could speak a little bit about Druid as well. Um, Miku, what about Barbarian? Are you guys eating good right now?
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. I mean, we got pretty much 4 like kind of reliable, like somewhat high pushing builds, right? We got Thorns, we got Fly with Rapture and Bash and Whirlwind. That although it doesn't push as high, is really fun for a lot of people, and it's amazing for speed clearing, like one-on-ones to farm materials and stuff. We also a build that a lot of people are not aware of. It's like Kick. I think it's clearing like 130 or something. Like it's not the best, but it's still like it's a really interesting playstyle. It's probably the most interesting playstyle out of the 5. And that kind of brings us to one of the 2 points I want to talk about Barbarian, is that most of the builds that we have, like actually, even though we got builds that are strong, most of them are kind of boring. Almost no one wants to play Thorns, even though there are people like Do Not Hit Me that are mad for it and is pushing it super high, right? Flay is the same thing. You just pull enemies in, hit, rupture, hit, spam all abilities. That's it. You just stay there doing nothing. Bash is a bit more interesting, but it's kind of the same as Flay, just the basic ability. Whirlwind, you just spin and shout and let it out, right? Uh, it although people like me enjoy it, for a lot of people it's a bit boring. Like a lot of people enjoy like brawling skills and stuff like that, just jump around, charge. Like in season 3 I played charge a lot, even though I still had whirlwind there, of course. But it's just super fun. It was probably, even though I didn't play the season a lot because I was not super fond of it, like playing charge was amazingly fun. And this season, that's one of the problems. Now, the other thing that, yes, I'm Barb and I'm complaining, sorry about it. Uh, a lot of our builds rely on bugs. The 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 list the least offender is probably Taunt, that I think only has like Needle Flare doing like weird things, right? The other ones, play duration, it's, that I don't know if that's completely a bug or if it's just not intuitive. I heard a lot of people say it's a bug. I've not played it myself. I can honestly 100% say for sure. But any build using gushing wounds, because the other three, like bleed bash, flay is a bleed, right, and whirlwind bleed, all use gushing wounds, and that's behind like bug, right? Because that first of all you have like berserk ripping that works with some stuff, does not work with other stuff. The 200 sword expertise that has pretty much the same writing as different stuff, and you just gotta guess or ask a lot of people and hope they are right about it. And then guessing once is just a mess because it reads the stat sheet, right, and stat sheet is another mess. So it's like a bug on top of a bug. It's fun in a way because like you have to kind of like piece it all out in a way, but it's not fun in the way that a lot of people don't want to do that. A lot of people just want to play the game and then they have to understand all of that, which is not intuitive at all. Um, like I do wish like we had different play styles that people could have fun. Like our core skills are useless. The only decent one is whirlwind, and it's just for proccing stuff. It's not even used for main damage. Eh. And we also have like some playstyles, like at least this season we got like Dust Devils finally got, even though for example Double Swing is not as strong, but like we Dust Devils actually works right now, which it didn't before. Like it was just dead in the water. We still got the Ancients thing that is still not realized. It's fun. Like you can just summon dudes, summon more dudes. Get in here and you kill all the stuff, right? Some people love it. I would probably like to play it as well, but yeah. And lastly, regarding our massive nerfs in the season 5 potentially, right? I do understand that Barb needed some nerfs. I'm not gonna be here, saying we didn't. I do believe some of them went too far. Like walking your snarl was not used at all. No one used it. Like, I don't think we even used it for leveling at all this season. It got like slashed in half. I mean, to make up for the others, I guess. Unbridled Rage, maybe it's not too bad. It's just the core skills are bad. That's fine. Gushing Wounds, I think, got bad, which I don't mind. I mean, it's bugless. I don't want to play that. Unconstrained was nerfed way too bad. Like, right now, you're taking Unconstrained to increase your Berserking from 25% increased damage to 35. That's not even a 10% multiplier to your build. I keep
Uh,
asking because it's
that's bad.
25 to 35, right? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the season for now is good. Some people are doom and gloom next season, but I think we'll be fine. Barb finds a way, always.
Somehow they always find a way as well.
Yeah,
I mean, when
something will be bugged in Barb. Something will be bugged. We'll find.
I think for Druid as well, like in terms of just how they work right now in PvE, if you choose like Gauntlet as a well, not Gauntlet, Pit as a reference point. I think they've done like 136-ish as the highest clear with wind shear, which is pretty respectable. And then Vasily Landslide has done 133, NF, like Nature's Fury Landslide is on 131, etc. And I don't think wind shear is that bugged overall. I think wind shear is basically working as intended for the most part. They have some weird interactions, but nothing crazily bugged in that sense. I would probably argue that Druid is one of the most like kind of like Sork in the way that it's not like a large range between the worst spec that is played and the highest one is pretty condensed. I think Rogue is like we have Heartseeker and Punshot, and then we have Flurry and Grenade and like there's a massive diff between top and bottom. And I don't really think that Druid is suffering that much from that right now, even though uh, they aren't like that strong comparatively to other classes. But I also must agree with the fact that like it feels slow, it feels clunky, and it feels like not entertaining to play. Coming from Rogue and playing Rogue a lot, like Rogue is like quick and even you swish and swoosh all over the shop and like just do damage like it's kind of intuitive and it feels smooth to play even though you're playing unintuitive builds. Druid just feels slow and calculated without being rewarded for being slow and calculated. It's not like you're standing there doing like a big hit and then you move on. It's like I'm tickling a little bit, less than the other builds that attacks like this. I'm not entirely certain what druids would need right now to feel more enjoyable in that sense, and it could just be one of those cases that like I'm not supposed to be a druid main, you know. But I haven't heard a lot of good about druid. Um, Druid also have the problem that companions suffer from the exact same problems as Shadow Clone does for Rogue. Basically, that Blizzard doesn't want the pets to do anything relevant. So like most of their skill tags and most of their interactions aren't actually working as they probably think they are. Um, do we have any other issues like that for the other classes right now in terms of minions or like companions? Do they work like they should for the most part?
Yeah, Hydra. Hydra does Hydra things. Our conjurations are mad good.
Oh, that's actually true. Sorcerer has like the least issues with pet in that sense.
Yeah, it's what happens when there's like no interactions and skill just does its thing.
Do you think it's because you don't really have unique modifiers in that sense? Like most of the stuff is like I just deal more damage, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's like I use unstable currents, I make a bunch of lightning spears, they increase my damage by how many are out, they make things vulnerable and they stun them. Or I get a bunch of ice blades out, they chippy choppy, they reduce all my cooldowns. So like Sork is in a full blown ice blade meta. Like every single build I'm making has ice blades. Because now that they nerfed the ice armor, we need our cooldowns like cycling, cycling, cycling. So it's just straight up ice blades. Which I'm okay with because I really like them. Because you don't have to take as much cooldown on your gear.
We do have the king of minions himself here. How are the minions for Necro?
They're much better this season than previously. Like, I mean, every once in a while, they'll sometimes still like do a 180 and just swing whatever's behind it. There's like still a lot of mechanical issues. Sometimes minions still, for some reason, they like to follow or walk in circles, like just circling around objects. In terms of functionality, there's just a lot of aspects that just don't scale minion damage, and it can be pretty disappointing at times, especially with the new uniques coming in. I would have expected those to help compensate for some of the minion nerfs that we're seeing in the upcoming season, but that's just not how it's working.
Yeah, I do. Like Necrominions is one of those weird things as well that it's kinda it's you would like it to be like a pure minion build in a sense, like being able to do that and have full control of minions. But it feels like for most builds, it's like either a byproduct that you just have them as like a body of sorts, like to block stuff, or it's like
Right.
hard to scale the entire minion kit, I guess. Do you agree, or do you think like there are ways to like just make minions do the whole thing for you?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Do you think like there are ways to just make minions do the whole, like just do everything for you, like do the damage and everything, or is it normally like a something that just helps support normal build?
Right. So normally, like for my build example, uh, usually the Necromancer is actually like providing or it's just helping out the minions. They're casting spells to increase or to unlock buffs, and minions are doing most of the work there. And they have been pretty successful this season. They're around Bone Spirits level, but usually I think a lot of people would rather just want the minions to do everything on their own. But that's just not how it works. I think this is probably how the developers intended for minions to work. It's where the minions and the necromancers work together. In previous seasons, it was mostly just minions just existing, just to give the necromancer stats, and sometimes we just end up sacrificing them because they're just so bad.
Yeah, I like for me personally, I would like really like it to be like a pure sort of minion build that just very similar to what you could do in Diablo 3. You know, where you could run the big mages to just blast entire screen for you. But I'm starting to realize that that might not be a thing in D4, um, for whatever reason. Do we have any minion scaling at all for Barbarian? I suppose you do.
I mean, we got the ancients. Like they don't have a minion tag, I believe yet. Like we don't really have a way to scale minions anyway. I think so. They are there. I do hope they actually get some love. Like we have like I think a single aspect that summons them, but it has like a 5-second internal cooldown, even though you need to proc it on a lucky hit as well. Like we do have the pants as well that buff them now. Ariat's blessing, I think. But again, it's not really the only use they got, which they got with Call of the Ancients and the pants, was to buff bleed on Whirlwind. That's it. They're not there for themselves yet. So one day.
Slot, what do you think about the glorious Shadow Clone and its interactions with Rogue?
It doesn't exist.
That's
Like
that's bad funny.
if I'm looking at Shadow Clone, like honestly, for season 5, since they buffed no witnesses and you look at preparation, which is for ultimates, the only reason why I would want to use Shadow Clone is for a 5-second unstoppable. I'm not worried about it doing damage. It's 5-second unstoppable, and you get the damage buff from no witnesses, and it still might be worse than Death Trap. There's it just doesn't exist. It's
I
not even worth wasting time talking about. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah, I've submitted way too many bug reports about Shadow Clone at this point. Like it just
Like,
feels like it's not supposed to exist.
yeah, I don't get when they have these skills that are just like useless or not doing what they're supposed to for like a year. Like, what you waiting for, big dog? Let's get it together.
I think one of the problems is that Shadow Clone was used for a long time, but for the wrong reasons. So you could get it to in Gauntlet, you could use it to trigger artillery shrines. So would just blast artillery shrines as well with you, so you got a lot of damage from it. But it was
That's still like a
only
year after it came out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like Gauntlet can't be a thing. It's like for a reason that Shadow Clone wouldn't get moved.
It's
I don't buy it.
yeah. I mean, we had like a while where it was used in PvP as well for like long unstoppable, and it's used now in PvP as well.
Again, just unstoppable. It's sad that that's what the ability
Yeah,
is.
yeah. Unfortunately, it is what it is, I suppose. So we've talked a little bit about the current state of classes in general and their pets and all that sort of shit. But how how do you like? How do they feel to play? Do you when you sit down and like have a long gaming session in Diablo 4, do you feel like your class is like, yeah, I mean, this is peak gameplay right here. I'm actually having a lot of fun, or what are you feeling?
Yes and no. Um, I think Sork is. I can't play any other class. Like I played Rogue for a little bit. It's not as smooth. Well, maybe I'm just a skill issue, but Sork's just so fast with the teleport and all the barriers, and it's like really simple to play. Like I remember when I made the Firewall Meteor build. Like I tried it in season 3, and it hit a point where there was too many. I was doing too many things, pressing too many buttons, having to think too much. Where Sork is like you don't think, you just go. And so the class is really fun to play. And like a lot of people jump ship this season to go make a barb. And they geared up the barb. They didn't have to do that much to like get it to be really good. They just hit their bash cleave tempers, had 2500 additive, and were just blasting. And then they got bored. And then they came back to Sork because they were just bored out of their minds. 3 shouts and bash cleave. So I don't know. I think Sork's got a special little place in this game where once you get hooked on it, you can't play anything else. And it's simple. It's very simple.
Miku was nodding a little bit there. Do you agree that
Um,
Barbs gets
I mean,
boring?
yeah. I mean, again, like the worst part of this season, even though barbs were strong, and again, like Larkin was saying, they're easy to get into. Like most builds are easy to get into right now on barb. Thorns is kind of again, it's kind of weird how it plays. In not completely weird, but like you have to know to leap and force move to leap again. That's kind of a problem right now. There are some parts of Barb that's still kind of clunky. One of them this season is Whirlwind players are not gonna have wrists next season because they need to like constantly spam the whirlwind because it procs more whirlwinds and procs materials because that's just how the game plays. So either you put it on a scroll wheel and you just break your finger, or a lot of people were doing, which I do understand that some people needed to do that to not have wrist pain and stuff. I'm young, I still can do it. A lot of people that's starting to getting into 40s or something, 50s that still play Diablo have problems there. They just use macros. Like that's one thing that I'll probably like Blizzard to implement, that you could have like an option that if you just have a key press down, it will just spam an ability. You don't have to, you know, constantly spam it, or in this case, scroll wheel or macros again, right? It's just a very good quality of life that I really noticed this season, right? I don't know if it affects a lot of other
It's,
play
it-
styles, other classes, but it's a thing that I think would help a lot. Avoid people from using macros because that's not gonna end good. And you know, and solve what a lot of people are like. A lot of people are using them for quality of life. They're not even for cheating or anything. Just quality of life. Like you don't wanna you know fuck up your. I'm missing the word. You
yeah,
don't want to fuck up your
carpal
end.
tunnel.
Yeah, you don't want
Yeah,
to fuck up your
that's
end
how
just to play a game, right?
Sork is with the ice blades. Like if you play on the straight and narrow, like you're literally going like this. Imagine trying to play for 6 hours, like because the cooldowns,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
How
just like not really feasible to be honest to play like that.
Diablo 3 used to have this like unintuitive option where you held down numlock and then pressed the skill and then removed the
Yeah,
numlock thing. It like automatically just pressed it all the time for
you
you.
can still do it. You do that in PoE as well. A lot of games like this, but that can easily be flagged as a macro. By
Mm,
the way, like if they are just checking their system, that looks the same as a macro
I suppose.
because
They're
it's the same
they're
intervals,
looking
right?
they're looking for AFK macros. If I'm gonna be totally honest, not if like they're looking for bot farm macros. I think
I
it's
mean,
more
yeah.
of a blanket. I think it's more of a blanket clause,
I mean,
and
what they do
that's
not
what I
want is like basically what they do not want is you get one click, one action. A macro that's constantly clicking a button is against that. It's kind of great. They don't really go out of their way to ban people unless again they are using it for mostly bad things like bots and stuff.
yeah.
But again, like people at the end of the day they're risking their accounts technically according to the TOS, and they should not have to go that far just to have quality of life.
Yeah, I agree. How about Necromancer? How does Necro feel to play right now, Sidan? Like, does it just feel okay? Does it feel good?
Well, personally, I like playing Necromancer because it allows me to play a lot, play for like long hours, even though I have like physical conditions that usually prevent me from playing games for a while. So it's really nice because usually Necromancers usually have a couple of builds, 3 or 4, like Bone Spear or Minions, that can where you can really just press one button and you'll do all right. But I can kind of I know a lot of people don't like to play Necros just because they're really slow. You pretty much just cast a spell and then you walk to the next mob. Doesn't really appeal to many people. So yeah, I really wish we could get at least one interaction that will let us at least close in on enemies. That would probably make necromancers feel just a lot better in general.
Yeah, you guys need a dash.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure metamorphosis was supposed to be for us specifically, but we have to share it.
Well, sharing
Yeah.
is caring.
Yeah, and then they made it not that good.
Hey, it still has 100% lucky hit. It's something.
Yeah, Barbs were actually using it for like speed builds. Like I think the fastest clears were using it. So
Yeah.
There is a weird build on PTR right now where you play Andariels with Metamorphosis and some other dash shenanigans. I don't exactly remember what it was, but you basically like triggered 100% lucky hit all the time, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you just procced Andariels like no other. Um, so there are some uses to meta still at least, but yeah,
Yes.
it does feel like a necro spell. Slot, you being the non like off meta person here, how does Rogue feel for you? Like when just playing it, do you enjoy it?
Okay, I will say I love Rogue. I won't play a build in Rogue that I wouldn't enjoy playing even if it's better, and so I typically will find a way to make my build enjoyable, if that makes sense. I could give a lot of examples here. Uh, let's use the number one offender. Caltrops is the most and worst skill to use in the game. It is a trap that you have to use in melee, so you have to go into melee range. It then throws you out of melee range, and then you have to close the distance again to do damage. That eliminates the use of it for a skill like Barrage, which has, for some reason, like your first arrows are here, and then your next ones are here, and then your next ones are like all the way to the side. It You can't use a skill like that unless you're in melee. Um, and the same goes for Twisting Blades. That was one of the worst skills to use in the Abattoir of Zir. And Flurry didn't exist, so why even count it? I would say that Rapid Fire for me is a skill I will never use simply because having that long delay between shots, which you have to evade out of, also feels terrible. Um, and in general, there's just some things that don't make sense. Smoke Grenade, they buffed it significantly, and it seems to be like one of the best CC abilities in the game. And you have something like Poison Trap, which has a 1.5 or 2 second arm time, and has a much smaller AoE range to CC than Smoke Grenade has. You can then go through like, do imbuments feel good to use? No, you're back to like the spam issue, and they didn't really solve the issue in beta. It was imbuments used to have a 8 second cooldown, and they moved it to like 12, and all they did now is, I mean, bursting venoms is infinite anyway, and you have one of the glyphs, Night Stalker, I think, which every time you conceal, you take 4 seconds off of shadow imbuement. So they ended up just going back on what they kind of did with imbuments, right? And then you get
You're
to ultimates, and what is an ultimate? Like, Rain of Arrows is a joke. Death Trap is a 60-second sorcerer ability that sucks in monsters. As far as I know, that's kind of like what Sorks have. And Shadow Clone, as we went over it again, is just no good. The design space for Rogue is great. They introduced all of these grenade aspects, poison aspects, arrow storms, all this other stuff, and then they don't give you glyphs, they don't give you specializations, and they don't give you kind of like that capstone at the end of the rogue tree to do anything with that. Like if you look at what a ranged rogue can use, it is precision, which only works really for combo points because it buffs that last skill, and it's all critical strike damage, which doesn't affect anything other than a core, or an ultimate, I think. And then you have Victimize, which again, I mean, they just nerfed it horribly. There's nothing that would buff Andariels unless you use close quarter combat, which close, but it uses crowd control damage. There's just a lot that doesn't make sense. Like you want to use something like Inner Sight, and Inner Sight got nerfed in beta. Inner Sight was this specialization that would give the rogue unlimited energy for 4 seconds. And then you have, you go out of Inner Sight and you have to build this meter again, and then you have unlimited energy. And what ended up happening is they put an internal cooldown on it of 4 seconds. So now, of all 3 specializations, the one that gives you unlimited resources, actually requires the most investment for resources, because that difference between having enough to sustain for those 4 seconds of downtime and not is a very thin line that combo points don't have to deal with. And preparation is basically 1 more point of innervate than Inner Sight would need. So in order really for Rogue to feel good, they have to look at all of these completely broken and garbage mechanics realistically and bring them up to par. But the class is very quick and it's very fun, and I haven't met a rogue that doesn't like playing rogue.
Apart from
And
lurking.
I mean, he's
Hey,
important.
I killed Lilith. I killed Lilith. I got my first T100 Nightmare dungeon on Poison TB.
Mm-hmm.
Rogue's got a special place in my heart. Uh,
That's fair. I think
you
you.
know,
Sorry, go on, lurking.
what was it? I think the imbuements are really strange. I think imbuements would like work really well if they were similar to sorcerer enchantments, to where like you could pick an imbuement to be like all your damage is dealing this imbuement. Like, do I want to be a poison, a shadow, or like a frost rogue, whatever. Like that would make more sense to me than actually having to have it on the skill bar and like hard casting it. And then yeah, when I played rogue, it was nothing but combo points because it was great. Inner sight's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Like if you like you were saying, the 4 second downtime. If you solve your resource for those 4 seconds, then your resource is always solved. So what is the point of having unlimited resource if I've solved it here? Because I've also solved it here.
Right.
So I don't know. I think Inner Sight could be a lot more like just maybe like a straight resource cost reduction, and then after you've spent so many resources, you get X damage for X seconds, and then boom, we're done. That's it.
But instead, it has 25% critical strike chance, which is less than trick attacks now. Sorry, I need to go back on one more because I know this one too is going to piss Lurkin off because Lurkin always likes to talk about this unconditional damage. Why in PTR, and it's probably going to go live, is using a potion now an 18% global damage modifier? In
Huh?
what universe do I want to hit a potion as an 18% damage buff?
Wait, when you use potion, you get damage
You
now?
get
Yeah,
you get an
we
18,
do
it's
as
called
rogue.
unstable elixirs. You stun every enemy around you and you get an 18% unconditional damage buff. And
Temerity meta, here we go, baby.
like why does this exist? Why do I want to hit a potion as a damage ability now? Why don't you make like the things that should do damage?
What is this, Tibalt's with potion?
No. No,
It's
it's literally on the skill tree.
no. Oh
Can
wait.
you use
Oh,
it without like?
in your skill tree, you
Yeah.
It's
have it.
in the skill tree. It's not even an item. It's on the skill tree.
They
It's like
really want you guys to use temerity, I guess.
it's
Yeah,
like the
can
one
it
that
be
used
used
to
without
reduce
temerity?
shoot, what did it
Like,
Yeah,
do?
when you press potion with temerity, I think.
yeah, but
Or you
like,
could.
can you use it without temerity? Like,
Oh,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
maybe
can
you
yeah,
use
you
it with
can.
without temerity?
or maybe you use it with Soulbrand, because Soulbrand's low key
Oh,
best item in the game.
you're saying can you as soon as you take that skill, even if you're 100% life, you could use it.
Well, I mean, at least it works that way. If it didn't, it would be even funnier.
Right, but I'm just like, is this the design space we want to go down, that a potion is now a damage buff?
It's
Yeah,
And
also
I have
like
to say that it sounds annoying to use.
close
it's
close quarters combat never made sense to me either. Like,
No.
why am I stacking crowd control damage? Like, I hate crowd control damage so
Mhm.
much. Like, bro, you got bosses with. We found out in the PTR the T200 pit bosses, would they have like a couple, 300 quadrillion health, and then don't even get me started on the stagger mechanics.
Mhm.
It's terrible.
It's awful.
Every time, it's like every time they have the word crowd control, which they have been doing, like with the new lightning rod aspect, it's like does this, and then if it hits a boss or crowd controlled enemy, it does this, and it's like perfect, perfect. That's what like anywhere it says crowd control, it needs to also say or boss.
Can I ask a question, Ava?
Yeah.
I have a question for everyone here. Have you ever looked at something that they put in like in season 5? Because this happened to me where you look at it and you get visibly upset because you're like, why is this going in when it could have been anything else? Because it's so it almost seems like such a waste of my time to even look at that this thing exists, and I get frustrated looking at it. And I can give the
Yeah.
example after.
Ours is like the new aspects, like the jolting, where it's like every second you deal 15, 2,500 lightning damage to a nearby enemy. It's like, is this an offensive aspect? I'm gonna take this over 30% damage to vulnerable enemies. What are we high?
So Lurkin gets it here. For Rogue, they added one that, as we were talking about Inner Sight, the way Inner Sight works is once. Okay, so you have your 4 seconds that you're in Inner Sight, and you have unlimited energy and 25% crit chance. Then you have 4 seconds of downtime, and then a random mob gets marked. And when you do damage to that random mob, your meter fills up. And they added an aspect to the game that gives you 100% critical damage against marked enemies. And so for that 1 second out of 9, you have 100% crit damage. And you're just and it's against a random mob too. You don't get to choose who it is. And you just think like
It makes you
why?
think like our like inner sight's really bad, like, and then you guys are making aspects for it, like, so are you reworking it, or is this what's going on with it?
Yeah. And not only that, but it's like as bad, it's actually an aspect that works against itself because the more damage you do to that marked enemy, the faster that mark wears off.
Yeah, dude, inner sight was always so terrible. It's like,
It-
what
It's
is
such a
this?
weird design decision overall. Like, and the weird part for me is like, I didn't get well, I got confused about that decision to include that aspect in general, right? But like, I get even more annoyed when I then see them make decisions like, oh, because this doesn't synergize well with the kit. For example, the new Druid gloves that basically made Cataclysm a Ooga Booga super spell. They realized, having that on gloves is not really good for Druid, so we're gonna put it on the ring. Because they were like, oh, this makes more sense for the, design decision, about the class and stuff. And then I look at that aspect, like the inner sight aspect, and I'm like, can those people also do, good decision with this stuff? Like, why do rogues get the short end of the stick when it comes to those sort of decisions that should be kind of no-brainers when you look at how the specialization works, but what they are doing with it. Same thing with, like Slot was talking about with Leiranas, like just add core damage temper somewhere, please, so that we can at
Or
least
make it work on
utilize it.
anything.
Yeah,
Or the fact that it's for core on a Paragon board that has attack speed. And the only board we have that has core is a completely different one.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Can I
it's
ask one more, sorry. We went from early in this game where vulnerable and critical strike damage were multipliers and they made them additive. And then they said, "Hey, guess what, rogues? You have precision which scales off critical strike damage, and you have victimize which scales off vulnerable damage." So like what did we end up doing? And then I guess you have CQC which used to be 40% and now is 10% for crowd control damage. So what did we end up doing in this whole make things non-multiplicative just to make them multiplicative again?
I
We got
think
that in Barbasol. Gushing once an Emerald. Gushing once critical damage. Emerald. It's gonna be capped next season. Vulnerable.
Do you guys have passives that scale? That's crazy.
you're gonna, let's be honest, you're gonna have more passives that scale than compared to rogue.
Well, with Sork, it's all flat. It's all flat. Like 1.3x, 1 point, and like, all right, I'm gonna bitch about Avalanche for a second. All right, so Avalanche is passive on Sorcerer. It's only good. It's only mid on one build, Ice Shards. It's like lucky hit chance against a vulnerable enemy has like a 10% chance to like make your next cast deal 60% more damage and be free. Sounds really good, right? But like it only works with the cast. So like when you're casting blizzards, it doesn't work with the ice spikes. When you're casting frozen orbs, it doesn't work with all the different amulet spawns that are like spawning. So it's like, and then you got to take an aspect so that you can get another 2 free casts. And it's like, what are we doing with this aspect? Like, what are we doing with this passive? I don't know. I hate Avalanche, man. I just want it to be good. Like, bro, just give me like 3 seconds where all my frost damage does 40% more damage. We're done. But it's like stupid stuff. It's like combustion's really good now. I mean, it's 60% damage, and then Asus Ferocity still kind of sucks. You really only use that to use the Ancient Flame aspect to get 50% attack speed. But I'm running Asus Ferocity, which does nothing for Blizzard, just so that I can proc it, so that I can get attack speed. It doesn't make sense. And then I don't know. I'm glad Shatter's getting neutered because I hate Shatter.
By the way,
Yeah.
going back to what you're asking of like weird things in PTR, we Barb's got the unique that's Unbroken Shine, which works with Iron Maelstrom, which is our ultimate that we don't use at all, not even to buff something else. Because like Cause of the Ancients, we don't necessarily use it for itself, but it has like a 25% multi. So it's nice, nice boost of damage. Uh, Wrath of the Wrath of the Berserker is also like just a damage boost mostly. It gives you Berserk, but most builds on Barb can have a good Berserk uptime anyway. But you know, Iron Maelstrom is purely like a damage skill, like, and it's really awesome. You pull back, you throw the chance, you're fucking Kratos up in there, but it does no damage. Like it's super flashy, does nothing, and
Yeah.
the unique just makes it so enemies hit by Iron Maelstrom uh do less damage. Besides that, also like one thing that's actually nice is that it helps you reduce our Iron Maelstrom cooldown with Steel Grasp. That's nice, but like we are barbs. We are running with no life on anything because we got like 4 weapons with life, and we just don't take damage. We don't need more damage reduction. We just want the skill to be useful. It's not like
Barbarian's tanky? No way.
I don't
like
know what their I don't know what their obsession with like ultimate damage is too. It's like I can't take this. I can't take ultimate damage. Like I'm just gonna take crit damage because it'll scale my main skill
yeah,
and the ult damage. Like
yeah,
why?
the amulet has 300 base ultimate damage.
Oh, that's sick.
Like
Thanks,
I mean,
bro. I'll
it,
look.
it's
Oh,
it's
I could
it's
just take a
missing crit.
temper.
Yeah. Like it's missing crit chance on a hamlet, which is really important because on barbs we can't get like crit chance on like some classes like Necromancer, right?
Yeah,
We
sword crit's
barely get
free.
we get close to it, but we rarely get to 100. But like it's missing that. A lot of other important stats like cooldown that might be important to actually, the amulet does not need it a lot. Like we're
And
sacrificing a lot.
it's an amulet too, dude. Like that's a big.
Yeah,
An amulet is 100% damage. Like at least,
yeah.
just the 1.5x aspect you put on it, and then the passive stuff like that. It's like it needs to be good, like Winter Glass. Like that amulet's worth it. But like you look at like Asadora's, it's like what is this?
What about Necromancer then? Do Necromancer have anything that is like completely backwards on PTR right now? Like could be a passive or aspect or anything?
Yeah, one of our new aspects, we actually got one for minions that's supposed to scale dot damage. But for some reason, wait. Yeah, it scales the necromancer's damage instead, which is just completely wrong. And it scales with wither. So and it also has like 100% chance lucky hitting, which isn't exactly new for necros. Pretty much it seems like anytime they add something new to necromancers, it always has some weird lucky hit bugs.
I mean, it seems like it overall. Like whenever, like we have the same problem with the new Dark Shroud chest of a rogue as well. It just randomly has 100% lucky hit. Shouldn't have any lucky hit whatsoever because
Yeah.
Dark Shroud doesn't, but that does for no reason.
I hate lucky hit so much. I think it's the worst mechanic. I don't understand.
It's
Like why
super
it exi-
unintuitive, yeah.
I
It's like
just
a
Yeah,
lucky hit, then you have a chance to proc something. It's not even lucky hit and you proc. Most of the times you lucky hit and then you have a chance to proc. Like,
yeah.
yeah, and then you have all of these interactions that are like, oh, it's a damage over time effect, so it will track the chance to lucky hit at least once over its duration, which is like the most useless information you could possibly get. It's like,
Dude, I don't I don't take any lucky hit anywhere. Like not even in my skill tree. You know how I scale my lucky hit? I cast more skills.
I
I
mean,
get my attack speed up.
checks
I
that's
out.
hit
actually
more.
gonna be super cool on Whirlwind in season 5. I actually have a build around it with like 200% attack speed and like 100 and something lucky hit. It's
Dude,
theoretically going upwards of 5 lucky hits per second on Whirlwind, which is insane.
talk about these new Fists
Uh,
of Fate though. Holy shit.
I'm using, like, I had the build prepared and then I saw that leak and it was like perfect, slotted perfectly. It was like chef kiss.
I might end up taking Fist of Fate on Frozen Orb. I don't know. We'll see. We're a little tight for
It's a
aspects.
50% multi on gloves and now has good aspect, as good stats like crit and attack speed. Great, lucky hit if you care about it is nice, and you
It's a
also
lot
have
of
like,
lucky.
yeah, it's
Chance to do,
50%. You can get like
chance to
120
stun
or
or do some
something.
shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're looking good. And I think it's funny what they did with Frostburns. So they went from like the worst thing in the game to like, all right, I guess I could use these like mid game when I have no good gloves. Like, all right, I'll put these on. But then once I get good gloves, just take them off.
I mean, at least they
Hey
have a
Ava,
use. Yeah. What's up, Slot?
why don't you explain how Twisting Blades lucky hit works now?
Oh, dude. I don't know what they did.
I don't know
Uh,
how any lucky hit works, bro. I just cast.
so the problem with PTR, like with general like lucky hit stuff, is that lucky hit is the least communicated thing on the planet when it comes to how it works in actuality. And apparently they did something with Twisting Blades before they changed it. Every single hit, so it's like when you stabbed, when the blade came back, and then when it spun around you, every hit had the luck hit chance of the ability. So if it had 35% lucky hit, then every hit in from the twisting blade had 35% chance to lucky hit. A very common thing for spells like this. Now it's just randomly divided across how many hits you have. So if you have like 3 different hits, from stabbing, returning, and then twisting, the lucky hit is split on all those 3. So it has less actual lucky hit than flurry now. It's like the weirdest thing ever. And they don't report it anywhere. It makes me so sad. I just wish they would have like announced like, oh yeah, we are changing lucky hit for twisting blades because we feel lucky hit stuff is proccing way too frequently. But nope, it just doesn't work anymore. In regards to, because we've mentioned a few ultimates here today that are completely useless, and we've also seen the Spiritborn, well, like
Those
information or like stuff
they look sick.
that look super sick. If we compare like the ultimates that they have and the usability in their builds to what we have with our classes right now, what do you think like they would have to change for our current ultimates to make them sort of usable like they are for Spiritborn right now?
I mean, starting on Barb, like our Maelstrom, I think it's like, at least as it is, it's just damage. It's purely a damaging skill. You just do 3 attacks consecutively, and it does a lot of damage. Like the idea, and like when they announced it on the trailer, it looked super cool, and just do that, and everything around you dies. In game, it just does nothing. That's purely a damage thing. Like Wrath of the Berserker is just a steroid buff on you. That's it. Just a damage buff, nothing else. The other one, the Call of the Ancients, it's more interesting because you can actually call like the Ancients in, gives you buffs. They also give you some interaction if you take the last passive. But again, it's just weak right now. Ancients, it's not really that good. You're just using it for the 25% damage and potentially the 25% attack speed, the 20% attack speed if you can use it. But like the ults like might need some reworking, like adding something nice to them besides just being a damage, a buff, and only one of them is interesting. The other ones are just damage or buff. That's it. Yeah, that's like one of the things that also comparing to Barb. This is not just ult, like their inherent class skill. Like you can use the gorilla and then a tiger, and you get like different things happening to your skills. That's really interesting. And I was actually talking with Larkin a bit before the stream, and he's talking about, I believe, Zork. That is not as interesting, right? Like for
Yeah.
Barb as well, when you look at it, the arsenal system, assuming it's also giving you the 4 weapons, maybe it is, maybe it's not. Like the passives itself, they're not really super interesting. Right now, just you default to
Vulnerable one, right?
200, the 200 axe. That's 10% vulnerable, and that's it. They're not interesting at all, and they're poorly balanced against each other. You know, that's it. Yeah. They need to give some love to. It's not just power, but like flavor. That's the important part. Because I saw the trailers and I was like, fuck yeah, that's awesome. That looks fucking super nice to play. But yeah, we'll see. You know, season 7.
It's this. It's every season. This is the season. This makes or breaks the game. Like that's what I feel. I think season 5 is definitely gonna be a big snoozer, big interlude.
I mean, yeah,
Probably
it's a small
probably
season as
mess.
well. So,
Yeah. So that's fine.
Season
But
5, you mean
I'll,
season 6 PTR?
season 6 PTR. Yeah. No, for real. But I think I don't know Sork ults. I like used to talk a lot of shit about them, but they're really not that bad. Like deep freeze is a really good defensive tool. Like you're immune for 8 seconds. It resets all your cooldowns. It's actually really sweet. But it's just like the meta doesn't really call for it, and it's only ever really good on Blizzard because of the ice spike aspect Blizzard takes. Because then you can use it offensively. It like makes a ton of ice spikes, and they actually do pretty good damage. I don't really know what it would need to be better. Maybe like after you use it, you get 25% DR and like 25% damage with frost kills for like 5 seconds or something. Just like something to give it a little more. And then Inferno is weird. It's our little fire snake. It does like pitiful damage, and it's got like a weird, it pulls enemies in. That's really not used that much. It's like randomly used if you don't want to use Raiment and you want pulls. I always thought that Meteor should have been our ult, and it should have been this like massive meteor that comes down and does like a ton of damage. That
why
would have
only
been
one?
sick. Yeah, I know. Yeah, like
Someone
three.
like
It sh-
20 of
yeah,
them, 30.
yeah,
I
like
don't.
3 massive meteors, and I thought Inferno should have been a mastery skill because it could have been like some utility, like going around casting Infernos, pulling, and stuff like that.
I like that.
But yeah, I don't know. I just want ult damage to do something. Like our best ult by far, probably is the best ult in the game. I think is Unstable Currents. It's literally just a 25% attack speed buff, but then when you're using it on shock skills, you use it to scale like all the shock skills. Most of the shock builds are straight up just unstable current activators because you're just trying to scale your damage through all the spears that it makes. So I would love for ult damage to do something for unstable currents
Hmm.
because it does nothing right now because it's just a self buff. I'd love if like during unstable currents 300% ult damage converted to like just like plus 300 all damage, just like straight additive that you could have during it.
Or like
But then
convert, like scaling like the attack speed with ultimate damage, or
yeah,
like
scaling the attack speed a bit more
duration.
because it is unstable currents attack speed is that juicy second bucket, so it's like it's pretty free on Sork. We don't get much second bucket. That would be nice, just something, or like a hot like alt damage gives you a higher chance to cast the shock skill because right now it's like I don't know, something like that.
I think for Druid, it's a bit like all of the ultimates don't feel like ultimate, I suppose. Like you have Grizzly Rage, which definitely feels like an ultimate. You get scaling damage increase, and you get DR. you know, every kill they do extends it, you know, like that sort of stuff. Like it feels like an ultimate. Like you pop it, you get stronger, like you go kind of crazy. Lacerate is like the most non-ultimate ultimate I've ever seen in my goddamn life. Like you go in there, do a little bit of damage, and then you get a buff, but it's like I don't know. It feels weird to need 3 skill points in the ultimate to make it feel like an ultimate.
I don't
Um,
know why there's even the ultimates even have nodes, bro. Just make it one.
yeah,
Just give me the ult.
this is the ultimate. It's 1 point sort of thing, you know.
Yeah,
Um, Cataclysm does really feel like an ultimate as well. It's a little bit buggy and stuff, but at least it has that ultimate feeling. You're like popping it and something changes. Pet,
that's how unstable currents is. You pop it and you're just like, all right.
yeah, like I'm going ham kind of thing, you know, like it's
Yeah,
good.
the whole goal of like every lightning build is just to have it up permanently, and then
Yeah.
you just go around
Uh,
crapping out shock skills.
And then you have Petrify, which is like in terms of like damage contribution, it really, you know, it's like a 50% multiplier. But like it's 3 duration, like 3 seconds duration baseline, 6 against
Terrible.
bosses. Like it feels kind of awful with 50-second base cooldown. Obviously, you can reduce it by different means, but it's like doesn't really feel like great. You know, it doesn't feel like an ultimate. It's like
Then you then you're just shoehorned into like flicker stepping around,
yeah,
and that gameplay is like annoying.
yeah. There's obviously
I
ways like with I think there are boons that increases the duration, like the calamity that increases duration of ultimate skills and stuff. So like you could extend it, but I don't know. It feels a bit weird. What about Necromancer then? How does a Necromancer ultimate feel?
Some of them are actually pretty good, I think. Like specifically Bone Storm and Army of the Dead. Blood Wave received the buffs, and I think they're gonna be stronger. It's gonna be stronger in season 5, but I don't really know much about Blood. Blood kind of just sucks. But Bone Storm is usually used just for defensive purposes and also gives crit chance. The problem with Bone Storm is usually it requires more than one aspect, and you have to get into close range. And necros are generally pretty squishy, so we don't really want to do that. And for Army of the Dead, damage is just so bad. Even if you try to scale summoning damage or ultimate damage, it's not going to do anything compared to what your mains are doing. We mostly just use Army of the Dead because just to give us access to one aspect that gives minions damage reduction and a huge damage multiplier. And the problem with most of our ultimates is the cooldowns are just too long, and there's just really no way to lower them, especially because we're benefiting from Decrepify that reduces our cooldowns. And if that goes away, we're just not going to be able to use these ultimates.
I do think as well, like if the ultimates were really powerful but long cooldown, I think that like that dynamic makes sense. Like I'm a god for 10 seconds, so I should be weaker for 50. You know, like that sort of like dynamics sort of
Right,
like makes sense, I guess, to a certain extent. But you have some
right.
ultimates that just doesn't fit that category at all. And I think like Blood Wave is like really weird in that regard. It doesn't really feel like an ultimate at all.
Yeah, I think it too. They pigeonholed themselves into a bad design space by like forcing the ultimate to go on the skill bar when
Hmm.
like it really should have just been free.
Yeah.
As like, but they didn't want. There was too many. They didn't want too many buttons to get.
It could have been kind of cool to have like a build up system, sort of like how Inner Sight works for Rogue, but like have that as the ultimate gauge thing. Like when you're in combat for a certain time, you build up this ultimate bar and then you can use the ultimate. Like some
That
sort of
makes a
system
lot of
like that.
sense.
But like having it like now is like, I don't know. It feels like a little
It's
bit
yeah,
miss.
and you can just get your ult whenever you want. Like basically, like if you want to spec into it, you can have perma ult. I don't know. Sort can. Orange Herald or Flicker Steps or whatever, and then now we have all the unstable current cooldown reduction tempers. Like it's just up permanently. I don't know what they can do with them, man. I don't think they can do that much.
Power can do the same as well to a certain degree. Not to like 100% uptime, but it's pretty darn close. But yeah, like for example, like Wrath of the Berserker could just have it like instead of what it is right now, you just go like into a blinding rage and you just get the stacking damage or attack speed or something buff, and you also get a stacking damage taken buff. So
And
you just go ham for a second, and if you're too greedy, you're gonna get smacked in the face and die.
Mm.
But if you like, it's a more active gameplay, and it's actually something that feels like you're just going mad with rage in there, right?
you can.
Like I don't know, it's an idea.
There's there's probably potential. What is this?
This is not how Shadow Clone should work.
What
I
is
don't
it?
know if that's
Clone
mirrored,
That,
but
dummy.
if I shoot the dummy, my clone shouldn't like shoot the air.
Yeah. It's funny with Inferno because it's already on like a low cooldown, like it's like 45 seconds or 40 seconds or something. And the Inferno cooldown reduction tempers are higher than the other ones. So you can get like 80% Inferno cooldown reduction, and you could already like just like flicker step or reduce it. So you can probably actually make a build where Inferno is the only skill that you cast, and it's still not good. Where you're literally like one evade Inferno, one evade Inferno, and it's still not enough damage to like do things.
that's.
Uh,
It feels weird.
I think it's so let's go back to something I brought up earlier, which is when they made vulnerable and critical strike damage no longer multipliers, but they made something that scaled based off those for a very specific thing. So for example, if I were to look at critical strike damage for a rogue, it is an additive skill now, which confuses everybody. And then on top of it, it only works for a core skill for precision, right? So what you end up happening is this huge disparity of which a core skill greatly benefits from all this damage and precision, and anything else you use does not benefit from it. So ultimates are inherently weaker simply because you're not buffing all of your damage equally. You're always choosing one thing or another. And so you end up with a skill called Death Trap that does literally less than one attack on a 60-second cooldown. Um, what you guys were saying about a meter that builds, I mean, I'll name drop Path of Exile for a second. That sounds how Vol skills work. It's a very powerful skill you might choose to use at one point in a fight, maybe two if you're lucky, and it has a huge impact. Maybe Shadow Clone shouldn't be mimicking what I do, but it's a Shadow Minion that has his own skill set and works to just murder something single target for 4 seconds, and I can use it every 50 seconds or if I attacked X amount of times. They could put some sort of a meter in, just like they do with. I don't know if other skills have it, but like rogues have the new exploit weakness, which builds stacks up. They could probably do something similar to that. But right now, every single one of the ultimates just falls flat. Rain of Arrows is an AoE skill that takes way too long to work and it does minimal damage. Death Trap is simply a suck in ability. It's never been about damage, and Shadow Clone is a joke. These things need to do more on their own, or they'll never earn a spot on a bar. It's currently like in Season 5, rogues that are looking to use preparation are looking to use an ultimate skill for proccing no witnesses, which will be a damage modifier for your core skill again, or for the 15% DR, but you never actually want to use your ultimate skill. It doesn't do anything. And so the design space in ultimates right now is very, very, very poor.
Which is interesting because we obviously see with Spiritborn that they are very capable of making meaningful ultimates that feel sort of not build defining, but that they fit the archetype that a class is supposed to play. So they're obviously capable of doing it. It just feels like they
Yeah,
tried
like
to do something with what we have, and then it's kind of like, but it works, but like we shouldn't really spend too much more like time on it, I guess.
yeah. Deep
To be
Freeze could have
fair,
been like a mega blizzard that like I don't know. Yeah,
like
but
to
sick.
be fair, it might come down to the fact that they were. I haven't played Diablo 2. I'm only 26, so I only got to play Diablo 3. But like their main vision for the game in the beginning was Diablo 2. I'm not sure how flashy the game is. It's a bit old, right? It got remastered, so I'm not sure how flashy the game is, but might be related to that. And now that they left that behind and they're going like full on like more D3, more like not relevant. More. I'm missing the word. Sorry. More recent,
Mhm.
or yeah, more with more with the times that now. Like they just have like a different direction. Probably art style, probably mechanic style as well, and they could put that into a class because it's a new one. But the other ones, they might just eventually look at them. The problem is when, right? But like I think it's a good thing that the new class looks awesome. Like if the new class is what we want our class to look like, I think that's a good thing because if their vision is in that direction, we should support that so they eventually come back to the other class and work them up to that place. I just hope it doesn't take too long, right?
Yeah, that's the yeah.
And I do think, like, to be fair, as much slack as we're giving Blizzard in these comments and stuff as well, is like the classes overall have built archetypes that feel like they fit the class. So it's not like you're sort of pigeonholed into playing something that doesn't feel like your class just because it's the strongest thing for the most part. So at least it's not like, we have no build archetype that works for this class, and then we sort of have to like work off of that. Like, it's just the ultimates are very weird, I think, right now. Or at
Yeah.
least
No seasoning.
not
They need
great.
some seasoning.
Yeah. I want to be able to
Yeah.
pop like an ultimate and feel like, yes, I'm going crazy with this skill now, but doesn't really
It's
feel like that.
it's so it's so funny that our all of our shock builds are so unstable current oriented. Like that you always take it. And then we saw this season too. We were taking unstable currents on every build just to get 25% attack speed. That was one skill on our bar was just for 25% attack speed. Every build had UC on it. Uh, and then like the other, fire builds and frost builds you don't even look at deep freeze or inferno. You're like, nah. So
I,
it's just weird.
I do feel like it's a little bit sad when you're looking at skills like um
As a not the skill itself, but as a proc to do
mm,
something.
but like if you look at Spiritborn for example and you look at the pull in skill that he had, that was just a normal skill, and you're like, that's Death Trap, and that's a long
But
cooldown
free.
for Rogue, but like short cooldown,
Yeah.
like isn't like 12 seconds or something? I don't remember, but like it's very short cooldown. So it feels a little bit bad in that regard. But
And there's
hopefully
so
it'll fix it. Go on.
yeah, there's so much just free cooldown in this game with CDR and cooldown reducing aspects that like cooldown's basically irrelevant. I
Yeah,
feel like, at least for Sorcerer.
for the
You
most
want it,
part.
you'll have it in 3 seconds, baby.
So with all of this in mind, we've talked about basically the limitations of the classes right now and how they feel to play. How do we feel like they are? If we would make a brief power ranking, we've done this a little bit, but not explicitly. How do we feel like our classes are kind of performing in the end game? Because I feel like when you're leveling and you're sort of playing for yourself in a way, maybe like the power ranking of sorts doesn't really matter. But when you're starting to do like pit or gauntlet or anything like that, you start to compare yourself more and more to other classes. Do we feel like the classes are performing well overall in endgame?
With bugs or no bugs.
Well, bugs are part of the game. Bugs are part of the game.
As it is
Okay,
right now in
Sork is the
season
best.
4?
Sork and Rogue are the best classes ended. They're what 180 right now or something stupid like that. Bit. Yeah, the best classes, dude. They have no problems at all.
Firebolt, Firebolt. I know. I'm like really weird about Sork because when I think about Sork, I don't even think about Firebolt. It's not on my radar. I just consider it like its own little entity because it's just fishing for spirit color. And I know fishing's part of like the end game pushing, but it literally can't kill mobs. It can't like I've seen Makuna when he's playing, like there'll be a mob with this much health left and he has to keep going because he needs to shatter it.
Yeah, and eventually something shatters and everything dies.
Yeah, and that's going away next seasons. But yeah, I know Firebolt's probably the best build in the game right now, which is funny because like we'll complain about Sorcerer and they're like, but like look at the clear, and I'm like, no, but like the rest of us are right here. And then it was
And then
funny. They're like, you're saying that you were like, in the last one, the Necro was saying like, "Oh, blood builds are shit." Like, yeah, we did like a 130, and I'm like, that's my entire class at 130. Like 120 to 130 is like the really tight band, so the class is super balanced. But I don't know. I'm happy with the buffs that we got. I think we're in a good spot now. It's gonna help a lot, but what's gonna happen is like maybe a rogue does a 160, and then the sork's gonna be stuck at maybe 137, 140, and they're gonna be the exact same feeling that they are this season, where they feel like they're not strong because of how intense the pit scaling is. And I don't know. I'm not pushing pit at all. I'm done.
Don't worry, Barbie's still gonna be stronger. They're gonna buff Uniques, and we can equip like three extra slots.
I cared for a while, and now I just don't care. I just want to Gigablast 101s, but then I'm gonna get what's that Infernal Hordes? I'm gonna get
Yeah.
hardwalled on like a T8 horde, and I'm gonna start bitching again.
It's hard.
I'm
It's
actually
hard.
like I
It was
think
really
that
hard.
game mode has a lot of potential if they actually make like the things you choose at the end of the wave actually meaningful. And
Yeah.
potentially even put like an infinite scaling one, so people that really want to go at it, they can. Like, why the hell not?
All
Just
right.
let them have fun.
What's
If
um
if they die,
what's
they die.
everyone's what's
Choice.
everyone's most promising build going into season 5?
Oh,
Barrage and Darials. As soon as they released the unique, I saw all of Rogue Chat call it garbage, and I was like, "This is the coolest unique they could have put in the game for a rogue."
What's
It
the
makes it
unique?
it makes it so that when you use a subterfuge skill, it spawns an enemy totem that
Oh,
cannot be
the
killed.
totem was so broken.
And my first thought is like, "Oh, you just gave me something that makes it so I can ricochet with barrage and not have 3/4 of my arrows go into the void." But then Ava quickly discovered how bugged and yeah, it's a buggy mess. We'll see what happens with it. You could dump like
Yeah.
140k damage into it and it would spit out like 800k at a boss, and you're like, I thought
Something
this
is
was supposed to be
wrong.
30%.
Yeah. We'll
I
have to
think
see how bugged it is.
But it's like with Andariels and Barrage, which has a lot of lucky hit, and then on top of that, they just put out Fists of Fate, which if you get a GA and you put all the lucky hit chance on it, like Andariels is going to proc every 0.1 seconds, like 50 times.
like Barb at least. I think there's kind of three things that Barb is looking okay in. Dead Blow might be super promising with the third blade unique, right? Like, I think you can run like a Dead Blow build with 8 uniques and they are getting buffed. That's fun. You also got basic skills potentially, like the Shard of Arasil, and if they do skilled with Lucians, that has quite the potential. Core skills are probably still going to be bad, sadly, even if they can scale with it. The other one that I personally I enjoy it, I might be a bit biased there, but Whirlwind scaling with attack speed makes, again, like, it's with two-handed swords, it's 3.3 attacks per second or something close to that. Like, you scale attack speed, you get almost like 10 attacks per second or something stupid like that. Might have some like breakpoints that don't exactly work out, but it's a lot of attacks per second. You scale like 150 lucky hit, you have like 50 lucky hit per hit on Whirlwind. That's like 4 to 5 procs. It's not as good as 0.1 seconds, right? But it's still, we might get some bleed barbarian action with Andara and some lucky hit. Hello, bunny.
What do we feel like with these builds and new build archetypes and everything that is coming out? How, like, do we feel like any class is going to be struggling in the pit?
Like in 101s, or like
Yeah, like
pushing.
yeah, like in general. I think like I think 101s should be fine for everyone. But how do we feel about like just like, I mean, I guess like having it in two categories, like just pushing and speedrunning.
Would you consider like pushing 150-ish is a good place?
I mean,
We're
like
gonna be at like
140 plus at least.
we're gonna be at like 140, I think, maybe a little bit more, because like our normal builds are hard capped at like 130 right now.
Hmm.
We'll see what the rest of the uniques got buffed, but like yeah, we're gonna be like 140, 145 maybe.
Oh yeah, I
I'm
also
okay. I'm
forgot.
honestly I'm okay with that.
There might be something interesting coming with Thorns, although they got nerfed with them with removing imposing presence from gear, right? That's where the way they scaled. I think we now have like a Thorns wall channeling that's literally for Whirlwind Thorns that now scales with attack speed, so you can get more attacks per second proc in your Thorn. That could be interesting. I might have to reach out to Do Not Hit Me and collab there. But yeah, that's probably interesting. But like Barbs, I think we're gonna have at least like 2 to 3 builds that can push like 140, 150. We might be lacking some build variety because like a lot of builds that really needed those key passives and didn't get any other buffs are just gonna go even down. Like the only abilities that are gonna be okay are the ones that can take super advantage of the new unique. If they can't, they are just bad. Like again, the only reason Whirlwind is somewhat okay is because it pretty much got a 3 times multiplier scaling with attack speed to proc stuff. So it has some. It's not even okay. It has some potential. If it's gonna realize or not, it was extremely bug on PTR. By the way, the attack speed interactions. I'm not gonna disclose a lot of it because some of it was really bad. But if it works, it's potential. The rest, do they have a good unique? If they don't, we'll see. We still gonna have like 5 uniques, 4 to 5 uniques per class, and some other like general uniques. So
Hmm.
they might be build defining.
How do we feel about Necro then, Cedar? Do you think like they're gonna be struggling at all, or do you have like I mean you have the spirit uh, spirit
Right.
bomb build or whatever.
Right. We'll have Bone Spirit possibly pushing 150s, but
Hmm.
everything else. I mean, we might have a pretty good amount of builds in the 130s. Minions will probably be a little bit weaker because of the blighted aspect nerfed, and core builds might actually catch them this season. Just because minions don't benefit from that new unique helm.
Hmm. What about
But it might be hard. Like survivability might be a bit challenging
hmm.
because Blood Mist also got nerfed because yeah, sorcerers had flame
My bad.
shields.
My bad, dog.
Yeah, yeah. So
Ev-
so
Bro,
we pretty much lost our best method of just survivability.
yeah, that's kind of
Just
scuffed
failing,
because you guys can't
right?
attack. We can attack during it, but I took flame shield off every build.
I mean, can you believe that Blood Mist used to make us move slower? Can you believe that?
I
Can you
can.
Yeah,
I
can
can.
can you believe they took Rogue's best DR ability and actually made it better in 2 ways? So one, not only was Dark Shroud way overbuffed when they added like passive ranks to it, they just made it so you can't lose more than 1 stack every 1.5 seconds. So they took away like the biggest problem with it. And it used to be a marksman aspect only, and they also made it work for cutthroat. So they're like,
Yeah,
here's 80% free DR, I guess.
yeah. Dark Shroud's broken. I'm pretty jealous of it. I'm
Dark
even
Shroud
jealous.
Dark Shroud's not broken. Dark Shroud on its own is terrible. It's the
The aspect
Umbrus
that.
aspect is
Yeah,
beyond
I
broken.
remember. I know. I want like our Frost Nova, because Frost Nova used to be like hard meta because it was like the only way to apply vulnerable, and it hasn't been used since like season 1 or 2. I wanted to get the smoke bomb treatment. Like you guys have that really cool enhanced node where you hit something with smoke bomb and you deal 25% more damage to them for like 5 seconds. I'd love for Frost Nova to get that so like you could actually start to use it again because right now it's not used at all.
I
It
think in terms of build variety, Rogue has a lot for pit pushing. I don't know about Infernal Hordes because that's 3 bosses and a lot more AoE requirement. But Rogue is looking like Rapid Fire could be good with combo points. Um, Barrage can be good with combo points. It really depends on bugs and if those like the unique crown and sword make it into the game, and if Victimize gets fixed
That
and the
sword,
totem.
that sword was busted. I loved it.
Yeah,
sort of looks good.
like Heartseeker went from hitting for like 20 million or something on live with a victimized explosion of like 380 million or something to like hitting for 70 million, but victimize only does 2 million. So something's really, really, really wrong there. If they end up fixing that, Heartseeker could end up the best build again. But you will have two variants of Andariels, which will be Puncture or Barrage, and then a good amount of combo point builds, which would be Rapid Fire or Barrage again. Barrage would use the Totem. Um, I think Flurry has something there, and Twisting Blades is still dead. And maybe there was something with grenades, but I don't really remember because I don't really care about it. Pen Shot's always good. I don't know if Pen Shot's good. Is Pen Shot good? What does Pen Shot do now? They don't have Victimize,
Yeah, I think Penchant's dead again if Victimize
right?
doesn't get fixed. I think like Rapid Fire has a place obviously, but Pen is gonna be struggling.
Dude, that's way too much damage from that victimized proc. Like 380 million. Come on, man.
But it's like it's all of our scaling put into that, all tempers, all everything. Like it's still high, like
Oh, what?
a lot of
Vulnerable?
damage.
Oh, you had to take vulnerable damage tempers? Oh, poor
And we had to
thing.
use Caltrops
I know. I've Caltrops feels like shit. It's terrible.
and Deadly Ambush. Like, well, I don't know why some of this stuff works and other stuff doesn't work, but I guess what you could say is yes, it double dipped, and I think every rogue's fine with that being fixed. But why did it
Was it dealing
go
2 million damage? Yeah.
2 million damage? Is one God, what is it? It was like 1/30th of the shot that procced it. That's not a keystone.
Yeah. And how often is victimized procking?
It's a God 50% lucky hit chance or something.
Alright, so a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It-
I don't know.
uh,
What?
Talking about tempers, one thing I would love to know if Blizzard should give us the stats is like the tempers for bone and crit damage that the rogues have more barbs used it than rogue. I want to know that.
That's
They made
funny.
it global though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but like in season 4, Barb just made a rogue to level like 60 or something to drop the things and use it. So I
Yeah.
want to know if like we have more use of it than you guys.
No, because our two main passives, rogue is either all crit or all vuln. There's no other rogue.
Yeah, Barb is the
Sorry,
same.
there's
Okay.
Andariels doesn't use either. That's the only one.
Yeah, but like
But now
every Barb
now
uses
they added
one.
sorry, they added a new one which is it's like flat damage. It's like 80% flat per dark shroud that you have, which again, you can't lose more than one now. So it's like 400 or 500, right, Ava? It's like
Okay,
400 or
come on, man.
500% additive per like spot.
Do they even play that? Do they even play their game? I'm gonna be
So
honest. You get 80% additive, and that's on one temper. 80% additive per Dark Shroud.
yes, so
So
in
one, two,
fact,
three, four.
Wasn't it
That's like
100%?
it was like really high,
Oh
and
wait,
so
wait.
like you
It was
maybe
eight.
maybe 25% additive
no,
per Dark, or
mm-mm.
maybe
No, no,
30% additive
it
per
was
Dark
like
Shroud.
85, but like the you got it per shroud, so you got 85 times 5
Yeah,
per
it's like
temper
And so
425.
baseline.
you would end up not using crowd control damage, and you would start taking crit damage and vuln damage off because the additive from this dark shroud thing was so much more powerful than that.
I mean, there's just no way it's sticking in that form. Like, let's be honest. Like,
I mean,
That's ridiculous.
you say that, Ava,
I mean,
but
there's no way, bro.
you never know.
Nah, I obviously like I don't know in particular, but like it's way too strong with the changes they did to Dark Shroud to stick in that like iteration. There's no way. Like, it's just no way.
I'm gonna try to find it so I could see the exact amount.
But
That's
how?
ridiculous.
What did you guys feel
Yeah,
about
it's
Infernal
up
Horde
to
though?
80%, 80% per shroud.
That's crazy. What did you feel about Infernal Horde stuff in your classes? Like, do you feel like you're gonna be able to clear
Fuck
um
no.
Like
tier 8?
No.
Whirlwind the Devil's Barb is probably gonna be the best for that. Like I was playing without any uniques. I just used the new one. The what's it called? Oh, blah blah. Locran's Talisman, right? And it was a really shitty one. It had like 12% crit chance, max stacks. Like I was able to clear the like the mob ones, I was not able to kill the bosses because it's an AoE build, and you know, it is what it is. But I was able to clear, and on the like after the patches, if you actually make a proper build, you're gonna have a lot more damage. You're not gonna be playing bleed likely, you're gonna be stacking fury, but yeah, like for clearing, 100% for sure for the bosses. Since it's three of them, if it was only one, it would be a problem. Since it's three of them, if you can like kind of stack them at least two at a time, probably will be fine there. But like I think a lot of didn't they add like weren't they gonna add like a 9 and 10th rank as well? Did I did I read that right in the patch
I wonder
notes?
if they
Yeah. So
changed it. They probably changed the scaling then if they're gonna do
I mean,
that.
the only problem there, like the HP was okay-ish, but the damage you took, like I was playing with some other GMSs, like, and I had a really tanky bar because I just want to, watch stuff and just spin and do nothing. And like everyone was dying. And even sometimes, like with everything up, I was just getting clap.
Yeah.
Like, so like you're gonna have to invest a lot and probably on the higher scalings, like at least if they keep the scaling, I don't know if you can gonna be able to solo rank then. You might need to actually go for group. So that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, rank 9 and rank 10 is not going to be out on release of season 5. It's going to be coming out in the mid patch.
That's smart.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah, that's nice.
basically very likely something that we can return to and enjoy when mid patch happens.
If the mid patch is gonna be like 3 weeks in or something, because the season gonna be small.
I mean that's true, but I'm not entirely certain when it's going to be. I do feel like, I mean, like Druid, for example, probably has tools to make it work, especially with the changes to having the Cataclysm gloves be a ring now. You can probably do some Nature's Fury sort of really weird lightning storm spam shenanigans and be pretty fine with clearing Infernal Horde. I'm worrying a little bit for bossing, but I guess we'll have to see. I don't think Rogue is going to be struggling at all with Infernal Horde, like in any realistic way. Like, it's just no way. What about
I
Necromancer
will
then?
I will make a way to make it tanky, or I will find a way to make it tanky enough.
Of
You have
course.
dark shrouds, dude. You're fine.
I'll always be fine.
If you kill them fast enough, just place one shroud on each corner of the room and just kill them.
How about
Yeah, I
Necromancer?
think
We're fine?
we're just too squishy, man. I'm watching right now a horde level 5, and this guy's getting one-shotted.
Mm.
I don't know how we're gonna make it work. We're probably gonna have to like get in the group, and I mean it's gonna be kind of interesting if like the new meta is just trying to get as tanky as possible. I mean I wouldn't be against that. It would be different.
I got an idea. Just stand in a corner. You're like the
Your
golem.
minions.
Yeah, it's just the golem with thorns and just dodge stuff in the corner.
Or too slow to dodge.
What?
It is actually for a mechanic with a timer, it is the least punishing timer, right? So like AOZ and Pit, you have to complete it within that time frame. So everyone started dropping defensive aspects to push more damage because you have to make it in that time frame. But this is actually the opposite. So yes, you only have a limited time frame in there until you get to the bosses, but whether or not you kill anything doesn't really make an impact aside from how much loot you get at the end. So going with a tankier build as long as you clear it isn't as punished.
Can you change build between clearing and the boss?
I think
I
you
don't
can
know.
swap gear inside there. I don't know if you can, fully swap. I mean, it's not efficient, but I think you can like go to town and stuff. So
Doing the
at
whole
least you
Paragon
could.
reworks, baby.
Apparently,
Yeah,
Yofu is saying that you can 100% swap items at least, so you should be
yeah,
able to swap everything.
items you can.
I think I think pit I think pit pushing is actually going to be dead. Because of that, the Uber boss mechanic where you get the stacks.
Hmm.
So like I don't think anyone's going to be able to fight a boss for 8 minutes and like
I can say
dodge.
Dodge everything.
I can
It's going to
say
make fishing even worse if you're just going to fish for the Tomb Lord, homie, because he doesn't really hit you with anything.
Like
I have a little bit of info I can share on that as well. Like they want the boss durations to be shorter,
Yeah.
and the boss mechanics not to one-shot you, which is why you're getting the stack so that you can gradually take more damage based on you taking damage instead. It
As long as they
just,
lower the boss health, it's fine because
yeah,
mobbing should be a gear check. The bossing should be a skill check.
yeah,
Yeah, I got the feeling of that in the PTR since they increased the duration. Like you had to pretty much full clear the thing. So I was kind of feeling that for that because like they
Terrible.
probably, I don't know if they're gonna add another floor because 2 floors was not enough. You didn't have enough mobs to clear. But I really love that. For someone that loves Whirlwind, like I can clear, but I get to the boss. It's not even like most of my dungeon. It's like 2 minutes clearing everything else, and 13 minutes in the boss sometimes. It's insane. But yeah, that's nice. It will make just because most of the builds we have just focus on boss damage, focus on single time damage, flay,
I think it's
bash,
every
and
build
stuff like
now.
that. Just hitting a single target. They have a bit of cleave, but it's nice.
Sork's looking. I think Sork is so goddamn balanced, dude. Like, I, I want to try every build because they all got buffed, and they actually got buffed like a proportional amount. Like the shock builds, because they don't have any shock specific damage legendary nodes, they didn't get buffed as much as the others, but they can scale through all the lightning spears from unstable. But like the ice builds got buffed, I don't know, like 80, 100%. Frost build, lightning builds got buffed 70%, and then a lot of the fire builds, like the burning builds and the direct damage. The direct damage was like 100% buff, and this is just like at base, no uniques. And then the burning builds were like 150% buff. So I'm really excited for a lot of things. And then we finally have our first uncapped scaling ever, like that we can actually scale up, and that's the new splintering aspect, where it makes all your lightning spears like deal damage, and it scales based off your crit strike damage, and it was 1% damage per 1% like additive crit damage. So that's the first time we've ever seen something that we can actually scale.
hmm.
We've never had anything like that
When I,
besides like
Have fun.
burning instinct, but that had like a soft cap of like 125 because you can only get so many stats.
when I was testing the splintering stuff, because it's splintering, right? The
Yeah,
yeah, I didn't get to fully catalog how, well, calculate how it was scaling. Is it confirmed that it was 1% per one like crit damage?
I confirmed it. I did. Yeah, no, I tested it at a bunch of different crit ranges,
Okay.
like 200%, 300%, 400%, 500%, and it was like going up linearly like that.
Okay. Might be some like really weird base thing then that I didn't
Well,
account
the
for.
aspect itself has a base. It
Yeah.
has a it's like glacial, so you throw it on the amulet,
Hmm.
and then it's got like a base value of like 3,400, 3,500, and then you scale that up.
Right.
But it had an issue with bossing because it had this crazy component to it where like when it hit an enemy, it chained 5 times to all the surrounding enemies. So
Mm.
it was like blowing up everything, and then you get to the boss, and it's like tink tink tink. So it was like, oh yeah, another fucking sorry, another Sork boss damage issue.
Wait, we've never had that problem before, have
Nah,
we?
I never had that. But no, everything looks good. Like Hydra, I think Hydra is going to be one of the sleeper builds because you can get Hydras out with 16 heads now, where before we had 4. And all the burning damage got buffed 150%. Hydra is going to be schmelting bosses. You heard it here now, folks.
Yeah, we're gonna record this, clip this, and when Hydra.
You just need to use Fireball and Chant so you can actually clear the mobs because it only hits one target at a time. It
That
needs an
makes sense.
AoE or something.
Makes
Everything
sense.
looks great. Like the blue rose buff on Blizzard was crazy. I'm pretty stoked. Everything's dope.
I'm realizing that time is sort of escaping us, so I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to skip a little bit and just basically ask the one question that I'm kind of most curious about, like from all of you, which is if you got to change one thing with your class in terms of how it feels to play in PvE specifically, one singular thing, not like multiple skills or anything, one skill, one passive, like one concept in general, so that PvE would feel better to do, what would it be?
Hmm.
give us the same value for using multiple elements that Spiritborn is getting, so that we're not just single element cast with defensives. Let the whole ecosystem exist.
Hmm. Anyone want to follow it up with something?
I can only name one skill or one passive, or not like an overarching design theory.
I mean, sure. Let's go with an like with the design theory then.
Okay, let me scale things other than just core.
Okay.
And give me the right tools to do it. So if it involves changing a capstone, a specialization, and some points in the passive tree, like go for it. Don't be afraid to let don't be afraid to make things like exposure right now only works with traps, right? Like let inner sight work for the grenade builds and let preparation work for the ultimate builds. Let combo points be for the core builds, but instead everything is core core core. So just break out of that design space and let these other builds come through.
For me, it's such an easy one, honestly. Make companions actually do something. And I don't just mean like druid companions, I mean like every single pet in the game. Just make it scale intuitively from the things that you have. So it's not like a random like RNG generator every single time I look at a passive to realize if it works or not for companions or minions. I think that's like my biggest pet peeve right now. Yeah, pun intended.
I'm deciding between two of them, but I'm gonna cover the other one since I think the dropper cover the ancient last time. Like like we talked about earlier, I talked about earlier, the arsenal system, make it more interesting
Terrible.
because like make the weapons do something different, like between them. Not just a stat that you get; they actually impact your gameplay somehow. Like for example, on Spirit Bomb we were talking about earlier, they had like if you do this with this skill, it reduces the cooldowns of your core skills or something. Like it doesn't need to be that, but something more interactive. Because right now it's just a damage buff, so you just pick the biggest damage buff, which is the that. That's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be a big one, but I think it's important to make it more fun, interactive.
And what, also buff your crappy core skills? Is that the other one?
Potentially.
What about you then, Sidon? If you could change one thing right now with your class.
Yeah, just give us one skill that gives us better mobility, please. I don't think that's too much to ask for. Like, if we're going to be dealing less damage and be squishier than other classes, why do we have to have the worst mobility also? It doesn't make sense.
Blood Mist should be a dash.
I mean, or
Yeah.
you could go through walls because you're blood, right? So you can just go through the nicks of the
Oh,
walls.
Mhm.
Then you get stuck in the wall and fall out of the map.
Or we can have like the weird, crazy thing with Barbarian Leap where you jump over walls and like briefly see through the map and like panic.
Yeah, barbarians are gods. What do you want? They're gods. That's what it is.
Spawning mobs over the walls in Gauntlet because of Leap is a wonderful thing.
Oh,
I put.
actually, Rogue can do that now because you can throw a smoke grenade which spawns Umbercrux across the screen, and then you can shadow step to it.
Oh, I did. What was it? I played Barb real quick. I played Barb during season 2 for a little bit. Like I made one and I played some AOZ with it. I went the entire time playing it without knowing what any of my shouts did. I was just pressing them, baby. I didn't know
I
what
mean, if you
any of.
can reduce the cooldown, you can.
Yeah.
But
This is the way.
like on other bosses, like on pit, like when you get to like 140 and something, you need to pay attention because like if you don't have
Yeah.
like your
You got your
uh
rotation. You have a proper
not
rotation you need.
necessarily attention, but like some of them, like rounding shout. Uh, if you don't save it for like when Lilith pushes you in, you can literally just get clapped. You get pushed in, you die because you don't have unless you have leaps or stuff like that, which most people don't run right now. You just have to like walk out. But there's something interesting. Although probably next season we're just gonna have them like full cooldown, and just have like every 10 seconds you're proccing them, so have them constantly. But, that's another.
For Twitch. For Druid, I said more intuitive interactions for companions. That I don't have to do 4 billion tests just to figure out what Druid things actually work.
Do you think another like 25% buff to rabies would do anything?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We got that in common. I got crackling energy. You got rabies.
Yep.
We have,
It's
we have
like
corpse tendrils damage and Iron Maiden damage.
Iron Maiden. Yeah.
I don't
another.
know what we got because I can't read something and actually know it does something. It just does something else. So that's fun.
That is what it is, I suppose. I want to thank all of you for having joined us tonight with this very long stream of random issues with audio and whatnot. And I want to thank my guests for tonight for joining, especially C-Todd, who joined on very short notice when Sarok couldn't make it. Thank you for joining us. Next episode is going to be on Sunday, which is going to be covering Vessel of Hatred and the Spiritborn, which may or may not include some random viewer rewards. So stay tuned for that. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.